Mopariola. Today on the program, NDLEA arrests blind drug syndicates, recovers 13 billion naira worth of tramadol and codeine. And later on the show, Inspector General of Police redeploys Imo Commissioner, orders distribution of 220 operational vehicles for security during Bayelsa, Imo and Kogi governorship elections. I will be hanging out with Gani Kayode Balogun and Emeka Madnagu. Journalist Hangout starts now. Right, let's begin with the crackdown on drugs and barons in Nigeria. As this intensifies, operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrested 3 visually impaired men operating an illicit drug ring between Lagos and Kano. Now, the NDLEA spokesperson, Femi Babafemi, said another blind member of the syndicate is still at large. Their cover was exposed following the arrest of a blind suspect, a 40-year-old Adamu Hassan, along Gwagwalada Expressway in Abuja with 12 kilograms of skunk on his way from Lagos to Kano. Emeka, let me come to you on this matter. You know, thinking about blind men involved in this illicit activities begs one to worry. What factors, first off, do you think might contribute to individuals, even those with disabilities, being involved in this illegal trade, drug trafficking?
Okay, thank you. Well, it brings me to that expression which some groups worldwide have been trying to push. I don't call people disabled, call them differently abled. So the fact that maybe they have an issue with a bodily function doesn't mean that the entire system is unable to function to the extent that they can, carry out, human activities. So when I saw that story, I just said, look at that, differently abled. In the direction of alleged drug trafficking. So definitely, their situation has been exploited by drug syndicates. Because definitely, it will be difficult to say that they are just running their own show. Definitely, certain people who may not be in that situation might be contributing to this trade, and that's really worrisome, because when you have to, although of course, people involved in criminal activities, wouldn't mind exploiting people with such with challenges, and that's really unfortunate, because these are people that the society would ordinarily regard as being in a quote-unquote helpless state, or a state where they need guidance, they need empathy, they need understanding, they need compassion, they need care. But of course, now they're being exploited as mules, as drug mules, as part of the chain in drug trafficking. I think this is something that's worrisome, because you now find out that the drug agent, anti-narcotics agents will also be taking a closer look at people in that category, that, okay, who knows, and that might also lead to stigmatization.
Right.
So I think it needs to be seriously investigated so that such things can be nipped in the bud.
Right. With that being said, GKB, he's mentioned that there are vulnerabilities being exploited for the drug trafficking ring. Well, how can enforcement agencies now work towards preventing their vulnerabilities now being exploited for this same reason?
That's a very difficult thing to do, actually. Don't forget that in the recent past, we have seen disabled people who serve as conduits for gun runners. There are no cases in Lagos in the past where people were arrested who are disabled, to whom guns were given, basically as a guide, so that when an armed robbery is taking place, they will drop the guns with them. They have all the needs of everybody else. They are just disabled. That means they have sexual urges, the need for money, the need to eat. All these are things that they need. and they are not really above being used or being part of a chain that starts from the very top. Of course, a lot of people will look down and say that okay, these are social drugs, but people forget that we have an epidemic in Nigeria right now when it comes to the abuse of pills,
right?
All the manners that they created. Just recently, an American actor was killed for his reliance on Narcotic. He was abusing something as common as a painkiller. So sometimes we think when we talk about drugs, we look at cocaine and all that. But once we now change our direction towards people abusing drugs, even the very small ones, then we know that this is not a straight story. Because if they are running errands for the drug lords, this will be for people at their level, fellow blind people, fellow deaf people, people at their social class, who also need the pick-me-up, if there's something like that, that these drugs provide. So I think what they need to do is also what the police is trying to do. Make sure that whenever you penetrate the chain, look for the weakest link, then cut it.
Right.
That would be the best thing to do.
With moving forward from that, what role do you think, Emeka, what role do you think community support plays here in terms of ensuring that these marginalized groups are not, being drawn into situations or criminal enterprises like this?
Yeah, no, just like GKB said, I just remember a story of how drug syndicates actually brought in some drugs in a dead body. That was many years ago. They caught the dead body and stuffed it with drugs, packed it in a casket and brought it into Nigeria. But somehow it was detected, they were detected. So, drug syndicates, drug barons are really desperate. They are very desperate. They can use anybody, like GKB said. So, but it's also that the NDLA should now look at the fact that if these vulnerable members of society, are involved in this, then the enlightenment campaign should also look in that direction.
Right.
Yes, it's possible for them to be exploited, but it's also possible for an advocacy campaign to sort of break that link and target, get them sensitized through their leaders so that their leaders can also be more watchful. Because in a situation where somebody in their group could coordinate such activities, it says a lot about how sophisticated the drug smuggling ring is. So all kinds of things, people do all kinds of things. You'll be surprised to see that you might see somebody with a walking stick, but inside is loaded with drugs. Drug narcotics agents have caught such people. There are all kinds of things. They're so desperate. They are so desperate, that they can go to any extent. But the NDLA should keep up the fight and make sure it keeps busting all these quote-unquote ingenious ways of drug trafficking. Because honestly, it's not just about drug trafficking. Substance abuse has become a major problem in our country.
Right.
It's really destroying the youths. It's destroying people.
I'm talking about the substance abuse being, destroying the youth, the young population.
Yes.
We also understand recently, also the NDLEA made a find of about 13 billion naira worth of codeine bottles that has been recovered and 14 million pills of tramadol. Now, but this also brings to a broader question of the implications of this large amount, this magnitude of drug seizure. What implications do you see this, the magnitude of this in terms of public health, in terms of safety, in terms of the impact on drug trade? What do you make of this this magnitude of seizure being found?
Yeah, drug trafficking is one of the biggest problems in the world after terrorism. It's a major problem. It's even linked with terrorism, with money laundering. Illicit flows, financial flows. So you find out that people, whether in rich or poor nations, they are unfortunately drawn to substance abuse. And you can imagine, you're talking about tramadol, codeine. These ones are even the ones people buy. People who have the means can procure. What about certain other things that you'll be surprised? People sniffing the smell from pit latrines. The excreta of lizards. All kinds of things, mixing all kinds of things. It's a worrisome situation, and you even find youths these days. You see youths. It's a popular expression on colos, and it looks like a joke, but unfortunately, youths are being drawn into this thing. Then, I think NDLA needs to also look at the effect of social media on drug abuse, because you find out that, for instance, you find out some of these reels, some of these short videos, maybe 30 seconds. You see some of the things being portrayed, sexual acts being portrayed, different kinds of things being portrayed on these things, and it just looks, it looks innocuous. But if you take a look at some of these things, there are hidden messages in some of these reels. And definitely, they've got to say, no, this is not acceptable in Nigeria.
Don't forget our music.
Oh, that's even...
The music industry as well has a role to play. So how do you think the government, or rather the enforcement agencies, can nip drug trafficking in the bud with this recent find?
Well, all over the world, the drug trade is winning. Let me use that word.
Unfortunately.
Because they are creating new ways, and they are looking for younger clients. Some people as young as 6 or 10 are being driven into using drugs, substance abuse, and that to me is the danger. A couple of years ago, I think it was this British TV station that did an expose on the level of the pandemic in northern Nigeria. Northern Nigeria is always underreported. We only barely scratch the surface of what they are going through as a zone. So most of the time, these things are buried because it's not really in the public eye. But what we need to do now, and my message is not only to NDLA, but to my man, Malam Larry Onilu, the new Deputy Director General for Nigeria Orientation Agency, because we need to start from there. We've lost our values. Even somebody told me that we have no need to communicate to our children, that we speak different languages, that what we say at our generation is not what they say, and that we may be speaking the same language, but different things are being interpreted. And that to me is the danger, because our values are not their values. The values is somebody wants to buy, I don't know what they call it now, we call it sneakers. I don't know the name they have for it now. Somebody wants to buy it for 10,000 naira and he has no job. But it will be more influenced with somebody posting the receipt of 1 million he used to buy one bottle of drink in a bar somewhere. That one has more influence on him than his father or his mother who are trying to put him on the right path.
Right, in a nutshell.
So because we don't really have control over our children anymore. So I know under Malam Larry Onilu, they have their jobs cut out for them.
Indeed.
We must change our orientation, and not simply by talking, by also showing as parents.
Well, let's quickly move on to our next issue of discussion. Well, like a blockbuster Nollywood movie, a man has cried foul over the paternity of his 4 children. The 44-year-old Olarinwaju Kolawole wept profusely after DNA test results revealed that he isn't the biological father of his 4 children. Now, the man, who is an indigene of Ikire in Osun State, and his wife, Toyin Tella, share 4 children at aged 16, 12, 8, and 5. But his wife disagreed with the results, saying she was not there when they took the samples and didn't know which samples were taken. When I got to hear about this story, Emeka, I was really, you've been married with this woman for 17 years. I never knew that the children didn't belong to you. But, when you see this, what first comes to mind, and what does it say about trust, communication, relationships between parents, and when you get to find out that the children that you raised isn't yours?
Well, unfortunately, these are things that were talked about in hushed tones years when we were growing up. Some of these things, you didn't find them really in the media. Unlike today, when you have social media, so everything is just available for everybody to talk about. So when you see these things, you just know that, well, it's unfortunate that the marriages are now just available for
convenience.
Well, anybody who can just put some money together, two people get somewhere.
But should that be the case?
Well, it's unfortunate, the commoditization of relationships.
Right.
Relationships have become commodities. So values, like GK was talking about, are no longer, more talked about. People are not so proud to say, talk about, being married, happily married. It now looks like it's something odd. It now looks like the things that were regarded as being odd years back are now the things that people celebrate in what we call wokeness. The wokeness you find today. People just want to, be seen to belong to the things that used to be regarded as, taboo subjects. And I think I sympathize with the man, although the woman is saying she wasn't there when samples were taken. So I think an independent investigation needs to be carried out to be sure that to ascertain who is saying the truth. But this is not the first time. It has also, such things have been linked to highly placed personalities, Nigerians and around the world, but it's unfortunate. But I think people should try to respect marriage more, because it's not an institution to be joked with. I mean, you just keep somebody hoping and believing that, okay, you've had children for them, and they are their children. The person has raised the children to an extent, and suddenly discovers they are not his. How does the man react? Is it that he will tell them to stop calling him daddy, or
that's
he will
exactly
stop calling
the thing,
them
because haven't
children?
Raised someone for 17 years, and all of a sudden you've been told you're not the child.
No, that's why you see some people these days. You see some men these days. They say, look, as long as they've raised the child to an extent, they are not going to do any DNA test. They are not going to find out anything. They are not going to ask about anything, because, like they say, that expression, what you don't know won't hurt you. It's not as if they are saying they don't trust their wives.
Except a break away car.
Sir? Sorry?
Even what you don't know won't kill you. Except a runaway car.
So they just say, well, it's not as if they don't trust their wives, but you see, they just don't want to go into something that might just shoot up their blood pressure. It's really unfortunate.
But GKB, with that being said, what legal system now can be adopted to protect the rights of these individuals involved in such discoveries like this? What do you think can be done?
What can you do? In Yoruba, we have a saying that is the mother who knows the true father of her child. It's a very common thing that we say, because it is observed that most of the time it is only the woman who can say 99% of the time that this is the person that's father of my child. And that's nothing to do with whether they look alike or not. So there's nothing we can do, because remember, in Ghana, I think it's their majority tribe that is matrilineal. People like Jerry Rollins, the father is caught, but in their system, it's the mother's house that you belong to. So things like this will not happen, for example, in Ghana, because the child doesn't belong to the father anyway. It belongs to the mother. Yeah. That's why Jerry Rollins became a Ghanaian. That's why that actor.
So it's a culture thing?
It's a culture thing. I think it's a Ewe culture or Ashanti culture. I'm not sure. But it's a matrilineal society. The child belongs to the woman. So whatever you are getting, if it's from your mother's side, maybe you get to that point. Maybe you simply say, the woman said, I'm the father. But everything else will come from the mother's side. Because really, what do you want the man to do? Legally, what's he going to do? He's going to ask for the school fees. He's going to ask for the money he has spent on food.
What about the trauma?
Trips to the hospital. God knows what he has done for the children. As parents, you know that times you wake up in the middle of the night and your child is sick. And I'll do anything possible to get them.
Get them better, yeah.
I have a daughter somewhere in Badagry that got sick overnight. I have to drive from my house to Badagry about 4 hours. The car was overheating. The battery was bad. Somehow I got there. That's the power of the parents. Normally, things like this I would have given up. But it involves the life of a child. So imagine somebody now telling you the child is not yours.
And that,
what's he going to do?
Exactly, and that brings to the question, what kind of emotional support do you think these parents should be given? Because in this case now, it's going to be really disheartening. What do you see?
He's already 42. He's a pastor, so where is he going to start from? But one thing about life is that the pain will get less as it moves on. Because no matter the amount of talking you did, that will really change their reality. Because you wake up in the morning and you come to his mind that he has 4 children. Then 2 minutes later, I will remember none of those children are his. And it's a very dangerous situation to be in. So the man must not only be kept under serious watch, he must also be cancelled seriously. Because the thing may be triggered by an innocuous comment from a neighbor.
Yeah.
And the guy will just go back inside and end it all. That to me is the real danger. Not getting legal or something from the woman. That ship has sailed. The damage has been done. The first thing the man should do, of course, check his own supply system. And if he's satisfied everything is okay, move on with his life. But legally, what is he going to do? The woman is not a big star that has millions of dollars that they can say, okay, pay the man for trauma.
But at least for the time that he has spent for raising the child, don't you think perhaps there should be a little bit of compensation or something like that?
How much will account for your time, your youth that you spent raising another man's child? How much, give me a figure that will truly compensate for that trauma. Seriously, how much? 2 million? 200 million?
I know
400 million? Because like I said, the moment the matter comes back to his mind, or a neighbor make a snide remark, or
maybe he goes to buy bread.
To 5 people now.
Maybe he goes out to buy bread.
Yeah, or buy bread.
Eating the money paid.
Yeah, or he wants to call a child to go and buy something for him. I say, please buy me a akara there. So imagine the possibilities of the danger the man faces in the situation he's in. From being a father of 4,
being a
father of 0.
Wow.
So I don't think any money. Luckily, they said he's a Christian. They said he's a pastor. Maybe he should go back into religiosity for protection.
Pastoral life. Well, Emeka, what lessons do you think can be drawn from the situation to promote responsible parenting, if I would say that?
Yeah, well, let me just quickly add, there is also the scientific angle to some of these things. You know, I've read some of these things that somehow or the other it is possible for such a thing to happen.
It's not 100%.
You know, such a thing to happen due to one genetic factor or the other. But maybe that's where you have maybe one in the case of one child, but in the case of 4 children, then that coincidence has to really enter into the Guinness Book of, Guinness World Records. And so, but talking, you know, to the point, really, people need to be more serious with things like marriage. I mean, faith-based organizations, churches, you know, Islamic organizations, religious organizations really need to hit very hard on the issue of the sanctity of marriage.
Right.
It's not about just having money. A young guy being able to, you know, marry a young lady, raise children. That responsibility, there should be that idea that we ought to be responsible. We ought to take responsibility, because that's one of the dangers of this wokeness, you know, the kind of woke generation we have. People want to deflect responsibility. That, okay, you did something wrong, blame the government. Oh, the government didn't do this, the government didn't do that. So citizens don't feel that they should play their role. They should be responsible. That's the sad thing. People don't feel they ought to be responsible. So you're married to a man, and you should respect your marital vows. You should not do such things as going to get children from elsewhere. Now, if there is a problem, maybe somehow the man cannot father children, there should be an agreement between them. There are scientific solutions to some of these things, but not just to leave the man in the lodge and then just go. And in this case, he said that the children belong to 4 different fathers. I mean, that's something that, you know, people are also wondering. How did this happen? Why 1, 2, 3, 4? What could have led to that? I mean,
Jikebo, final thoughts on this?
It's not easy. It was really, I don't know what to say. Because this is something that I've never seen before. I've never heard of it before. Normally, when we say somebody's an anomaly, you're talking about 1 out of 4. or 1 out of 5. And it will be obvious. Maybe not obvious, but at least you suspect that this one doesn't look like us. Doesn't look like my father or my father. And along the line, you now say, okay, maybe an aki went on. But 4. There's no amount of talk that will change that reality.
Right, with that said, let's quickly go on a very quick break. You're still on to Journalists Hangout. We'll have more discussions coming your way in just a moment. Stay with us.
Unwrap joy, unleash taste.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to officially welcome you to the grand launch of this wonderful initiative celebrating the completion of the first 2,000 vehicles assembled here in Ogba.
To the glory of God and to the benefit of mankind, I now officially commission the 2000 car itself, number 2000, built by GSC in conjunction with the Lagos State Government as partners.
Our story began with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between CIG Motor Company Limited and Lagos State Government sometime in September 2020 at the peak of COVID-19 pandemic. Once it was signed, my team and I struck for just one thing: deliver on the objective of the partnership.
You know that China and Nigeria are very important strategic partner, and during the past years, we are confident in the future of automobile industry.
Let us challenge you here now that 2,000 is just a small feat. The 5,000 and the 10,000 you promised me, go out there and get it done. We don't need Tokumbo vehicles. We need tier-rubber brand new vehicles in our country. And you can see, even from this place, that it is happening. Diana, thank you very much for showing the way. Hopefully many others will follow suit. I want to thank all of the banks that have also supported them. Let us reduce, our pressure on foreign currency so that indeed our kids, our youth, our young children, our young graduates can have a means of employment. Thank you very much for listening.
Now, from diesel, petrol, aviation fuel to cooking gas, it appears that Nigeria's energy crisis is insurmountable. Scarcity of liquefied petroleum gas, also known as cooking gas, has hit Lagos and other states. Now, the other affected states are Katsina, Sokoto, Delta, Kaduna, and Kano. The rise in prices of cooking gas became noticeable since late October, causing a continuous rise in prices. GKB, this thing has really got me a little bit worried, because I remember the last time I bought gas, cooking gas, was about 6,000 naira. That was last year.
12 kg.
12 kg. And then
that's the cost
for half
6 kg.
For half 6 kg now. But when you think about this, one is wondering the broader implications of this development. I'm looking at those who sell, the food vendors, the restaurants. What is the broader implication of this? Because if ordinary household cooking is difficult, what about those who are into commercial business? What happens to them? What are the implications of this?
Even for the ordinary households you are talking about, a lot of people are already moving out of their budgets. I know people who have moved away from the 12 kg you mentioned down to 6 kg. And I know I know of a woman who now takes in a gas cylinder and lock it up. Nobody else will have access to the gas, so they will not waste it. And with the cost of electricity, the options are out. Unless you want people to go back to cutting firewoods.
It's not even available, it's been exported.
So we are in a catch-22 situation. We are proponing for a cleaner energy. People cannot afford it. I know because this morning at NNPC in our area, it is 1,000 per cubic meter. And they told me if I should walk down, I'll see it for 1,001.
Yeah.
That I was even lucky because...
That's for a kg, per kilogram.
Yeah. That they know who I was, that's why they're selling at the old price. And there's even no guarantee because 3 weeks ago, it was 5,400 for the 6 kg. 5,400. Now, 3 weeks later, it's 6,000 now.
It's really baffling, you know, because it's...
Because normally all over the world, governments
should regulate.
Try very hard to make sure that the price of food
is available to all.
So that they will not lead to riots or lead to people doing stuff they don't want to do. And if nothing is done quickly, I'm afraid that's where we're heading. Because if people now imagine the amount of time you need to cook, that means beans is out of the equation.
Unless you use electricity.
And the electricity
that is if you
don't
have
the
prepaid,
power
if
supply is
you're not
available.
using prepaid meter.
So all of us can really start eating Indomie. 2 minutes, not possible.
No.
But Emeka, when we look at the options, if we're looking away from gas, because that is the only option that most Nigerians have, and that is about the only clean energy we have. We don't want to talk about charcoal, which is not clean enough. We're talking about electricity, which is not available. So what then is available for people like who are in the low-income cadre now, they can't afford the amount of cooking gas right now on retail?
Yeah, you see, it's really unfortunate. The situation in the country right now is such that kerosene, which was said to be the poor man's alternative, I think is now 1,003 per liter. Now, cooking gas is out of the way. And I even saw one story where somebody was saying that part of what is being sold to people also contains liquid. So that when you shake the cylinder, it's as if there's some water in it. So what value are people really getting beyond just the cost? So it's also just like the fuel now. You're talking about 6 something, but you are not sure that the quality and the quantity. Maybe somebody is selling a fuel of 300 naira for you at 640. So it's a sad situation. But well, government has given the assurance that the situation will stabilize in the next few weeks. I hope it does before we get into the Yuletide.
Yeah, that's another issue.
You see, around that time, people do a lot of cooking, festivities, and all of that. And if gas is not available or is expensive, then where does the hope of the ordinary Nigerian lie? I think the government, well, the situation where the dollar naira rate is really showing some kind of adjustment, let me call it that. I hope that's what the government has said it will do by December, that it will get to by December. I hope it materializes, and that at the end of the day, it will positively affect the prices of goods. But in Nigeria, when prices go up, they hardly come down. Sometimes they do, somehow. But I just hope that somehow things will stabilize, because people are really complaining out there.
But do you think perhaps this is because of the rise in dollar? Because some marketers say we have enough gas, so we're not really importing, more or less. So we have enough gas. Even the federal government was even able to support the production of gas. So there isn't any reason for importation of gas.
The middlemen are responsible. But that's not an excuse. There's a government in place. Let them enforce their own laws. Because I spoke to one of the distributors yesterday, and he said that they have enough gas. But obviously there's a meeting somewhere where they all agreed on the amount they are going to sell.
So they're cashing out on all the
so we are caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because if Nigerians are getting together and forming a cartel, on how to exploit us. It's still the job of government to ensure that this is not happening. And about the fuel, I've been suspecting that for a while now.
Yeah.
That the quality of fuel we buy for our cars are not really what we pay for. Because normally there is an amount you buy, amount of liters, that you can calculate where it will take you to. But nowadays, the way it drops, it's like somebody's running away from work. So I think we are being scammed on the right, being scammed on the left. And it's up to the government to protect us. Because like I said, by December, if something is done, something else will give. And it will not be palatable.
And in terms of the government now coming in, who should be responsible? What can they do to help rectify or ameliorate the suffering of Nigerians right now?
Go through the chain of supply. Because if you are saying that you have enough and the end user is still paying through the nose, then there's something wrong with the chain of supply. You have to go through that, whether it's not from your end. I think it's about 4 levels. And but the one we see are the hawkers or the vendors at the end of it. So let's know exactly what's happening. You can't keep telling us that you have gas. Yeah, what we used to buy at 500 is now 1,100. Doesn't make any logical sense. Because if we have enough and we are the producers, why should we be going through this particular trauma?
And if we're to look at other alternatives, which we have less of anyway, but don't you think perhaps we need to look inwards now? If we're going through this challenge, Emeka, do you think perhaps we can, diversify apart from the little options we have to see how we can, not be involved or not get caught up in this kind of quagmire, whatever it is?
Yeah, the only other alternative, really viable and affordable alternative, quote unquote, is electricity. If you talk about solar, we are not yet at that point where Nigerians can afford those kinds of devices.
Right.
So it still boils down to the fact that government must help the private sector to expand its capacity to do this, because like one philosopher said, that government can't change any society.
Right.
Government has its role cut out for it. Government's role is not to change, is not to make your life better. But it's the role of the private sector, because the private sector involves entrepreneurs who bring in money, who trade, who engage in different businesses. So it's their role to make sure that things get better. But that of government is to regulate, to ensure that in engaging in enterprise, those people, those businessmen do not exploit the people. So that's where the government needs to play its role. DPR, is it what they call them now, NMDPRA or something like that. So they need to really sit up, because you wonder whether that agency still exists. People are being ripped off at the pumps. This is open robbery. Open robbery. People are being robbed at the pumps. Then look at gas. Look at the quality. Look at the quantity. What is going on? Who is exactly making sure that things? There was one man. I think he plays a role among those gas producers. He was saying that there's a cartel behind all this. We keep talking about cartels, cabals, and all this. Is it that?
Who they are.
I mean, beyond just knowing who they are, is it that the government doesn't have the capacity to keep them in check? That Nigerians keep suffering and suffering and suffering and suffering. And then these cabals, for crying out loud, are they so powerful that they themselves are inured from the pain that the people are going through? Because people are really going through pain. And I think we should not allow this situation, to
go on
to degenerate. Yes, these things can be controlled. Look at even wood. The way people are just pulling out trees, cutting them and exporting them. You just wonder what is going on. Are we just trying to strip this nation of all its natural resources? Is there a rush, a scramble for Nigerian resources? Even charcoal is being exported. Wood is being exported. You go to the sawmills to buy wood, unless you tell them that, okay, please give me the correct measurement. Then you pay extra. You'll be ready to pay extra. Otherwise,
you scam.
You just look at the measurement. Well, is it in iron? Is it in wood? Is it in whatever? The quality, the size, the quantity has gone down.
And the weight.
The regulatory agencies need to sit up.
They need to wake up. They are just snooze. They are just asleep. All of them are asleep.
All right, let's quickly move on to our next issue of discussion, where it's less than 5 days to the conduct of November 11 governorship elections in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi, and the atmosphere is getting more charged. And ahead of the elections, the Inspector General of Police, Olukayode Egbetokun, has ordered the distribution of 220 operational vehicles for election security management. Now, the force also deployed anti-riot equipment, including water cannons, armored personnel carriers, helmets, bulletproof vests, and tear gas canisters. Now, the Inspector General has redeployed the Imo State Commissioner of Police, Mohammed Bade, ahead of the election. And this followed complaints by the Labour Party and some civil society organizations over an assault on the president of the NLC, Joe Ajaero. Before we get to the issue of Mr. Joe Ajaero, GKB, let me quickly ask you this now. With the extensive security measures now being deployed for these elections, how do you see this, perhaps impacting on the electoral process? What are your thoughts, first off?
These are off-season elections. We have enough resources to tackle them efficiently because we are not really stretched thin when we are doing it at 6 states and Abuja. So we tend to do well, security-wise, at these elections. And if you look down history, you'll see that it's very rare for results of off-season to be as contentious as those indicated elections are. So I have no doubt that there will be enough security. My fear is this. The IG has created a lacuna. And that's the danger for policemen. Because I have nothing against him moving officers around. But I'm against the fact that to give the impression that some people can bully the police into changing his personnel. I know it's not popular opinion, but that's my opinion. Because the moment you start doing this, it will be expected in other states that they can also bully the police, whoever is the CP, to be moved away. This is not agreeing to whatever intelligence that the police high commander has, or Mr. Badi. I don't know it and I don't care. But sometimes in management, you look at the long-term effects of short-term wins. Because this will be a short-term win. Because at the end of the day, after this election, some people will still complain. It doesn't matter who these new CPs. Some people are just wired to complain. Even sometimes complain against themselves when they've won. So me, that's the only downside I see to this. Every other thing is fine. We tend to do well off-season because you have enough resources, you have enough manpower, and everybody is focusing on those very few states. So there are things you do in the general elections you don't do at this particular thing. So that's my take on it.
And talking about the off-season elections where we have, the downside rather about this, do you see this perhaps, Emeka, affecting voter turnout in terms of the extensive security measures being deployed in these states?
Yeah, I think so. I think voter turnout will be low because, the rhetoric also being deployed is really incendiary. It's dangerous. You see some people, paid writers, you see the things they're posting online. It's, justifying attacks on people, calling people names. And I even wonder, the police, are they not seeing all those things? It's not just about deploying 22,000 vehicles. You see people who are writing things, posting things that can set their states ablaze. And they are working for different candidates. And can't you call these people, can't you pull them in, get them arrested and interrogated? Because people hiding behind amorphous groups and all that. I even had to caution one the other day. I said, these things you write and put on Facebook, do you want your state to burn to ashes? Why do you write these things? So the police commissioner, there had been complaints about him, that he looked away from certain things that were happening in Imo State, even though the IG has said that he was not indicted. But I think also the security agency should play their roles properly. They should play their roles properly. It's not just about deploying thousands of police officers. There should be definite action before elections. Because it's worrisome that the judiciary is now the one deciding on, who actually won which election. I think INEC too needs to sit up. INEC needs to really make Nigerians believe, increase the faith that Nigerians have in it.
Right.
Because it's not right that, people spend so much, on elections, on electioneering, and then it's the courts that have to decide who won an election.
Randad, let me hold your thoughts for now. We need to go on a very quick break. You're still on to Journalist Hangout. We'll have more discussions in just a moment. Stay with us.
In a world hungry for goodness, with a splash of golden terra oil, a mom can transform a frown into a smile. Make a lunch hour a happy hour. Change no thanks into yes please. Provide care when her nearest and dearest needs it most. And resolve family feuds without blowing a whistle. Providing tasty, nourishing family meals is all that matters. The world needs moms, because where there are moms, there is hope, happiness, and love. Golden Terra Oil, or pure love.
Hey, big papa. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. Sit down. How you doing now? They can't pay. I bring your medicine. Thank you. Papa, where Miko? Miko don't work. Miko don't join oil business. Oil business? Yes, sir. Which company? Papa, Miko don't they follow them go cook oil? That's illegal. Small it's a crime. That kind of business no good for Miko at all. It is illegal and very dangerous. What happened? Wow. Papa, na fire for you with a cook oil. Who does your stuff from nowhere?
My country people, palava we bunker an illegal refinery dey cause for the community. E too plenty. Our pikin dem we get better future don dey peme on top. We dey carry our own hand, spoil we land and water. I beg you, no follow the do or sponsor this kind of business. Now Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPCL say make we tell you now.
Welcome back. It's still on to Journalist Hangout, and we'll be discussing the off-cycle elections with regards to the security measures extended in the states, Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi states. So, we're discussing about the intimidation, the impact, rather, Emeka, about what these security measures would have on voters in terms of participation. You know, and you have given us your perspective on this, so you can quickly wrap up on that aspect.
I think, I was talking about INEC, that INEC needs to sit up, seriously. INEC has really disappointed a lot of people in different areas, that's one. Two, the security agencies should be more proactive. It's not just about deploying thousands of people. You need to work on intelligence. People who are deploying dangerous rhetoric, and then, who are those shooting at candidates? One of the candidates in Imo State was talking about how his convoy came under fire from thugs. Is it that the police are not seeing these things? If they should, please let us be. I mean, stop trying. We are not foolish. Nigerians are not foolish. You hear of a candidate being attacked. Nobody is arrested. Nothing comes out of it. So why?
To sit up to
why? People are holding rallies. The rallies are attacked. Campaign offices are burnt. Party secretariats are burnt. Why all of this? It's because, you see, we also need to, over time, make sure that we remove that lucrative, portion of politics. Because that's what's driving many people crazy. They just believe, by all means, they should get into politics.
Into power.
You saw Chief Afebalola was saying the other day that politics is the most lucrative business, is the most lucrative venture in Nigeria. That's why people can, kill to get into office. And it's wrong.
Yeah, in as much as it is wrong, GKB, in as much as it is wrong, I think I remember this video being circulated, I think a week ago, by the APC deputy governorship candidate in Bayelsa, where he was making an insightful comments that, anyone that wants to die, that kind of, statement. And no one would take that seriously. And it really came under fire. It was criticized on social media and all of that. Nothing has been done with regards to this. But going forward into these elections, what do you hope to see, ensuring that the rights of the people are protected, the sanctity of the rule of law is protected, and people's choice definitely will be heard on the elections day?
Those are very big words. Two things. Election violence has been with us as long as I can remember, even older than me. There were elections violence in 51, election violence in 54, there was violence in 59, before the big wet year, there was 64. So we've always had these problems. So what's the solution? I wish I knew. Because you bring in federal police, people who are complaining then, that because they were regional police. You scrap the regional police. We now say, let's bring police from other parts of the country who have no stake, who have no dog in the fight. But we all know that when it comes to money, we all have dogs in that fight. So all the solutions we've given to stop election violence has failed. I know I've been a skeptic, but that's the reality. We've been doing this for 60 years. Even in India, that are older in democracy than us, people still die. But the problem is that all these are under control. I think what we need to do about election is, like Emeka said, make it transparent, free and fair.
How do we do that?
Basically, make sure there is substantive compliance with the law. Nobody expects 100%. Even in the US. As of yesterday, there's still a court case of somebody trying to ensure that they draw a map that will cut off the black majority and keep the place for the white people. So only the white areas will be controlling it. Because once they know they create that, the black will go to another party. So nobody's going to come from heaven to change that reality. Politicians will be politicians. Yeah, what I'm concerned about is substantial compliance. And then people will believe, fine, we have issues. But 70%, 90% was okay. We can take it. Then we can move forward. But when you have a case where people have made up their mind, that is either my way or the highway, we will not solve this problem. Because a lot of people know politicians are the most optimistic people I know. Even when it was obvious that he can never win, he will still tell you he's going to court because he assumed that he has won. Because both sides have to know the law must be obeyed, but people also accept defeat. If, imagine these elections, the three of them, the people who lost out simply said, okay, fine, I have reservations, but I'm accepting the result. I'm not going to court. Let's move on. Imagine doing that for 2-3 electoral cycles. This thing will die out.
Right.
But now people are made up their mind. Lawyers are already lining up for elections that are not being held. So like I said, there is no easy fix for this problem. We've been doing it for 60 years. People have been snatching boxes before I was born. People have been burning houses before some of us were born. I'm not talking about something that started in this year or 2015, no. Politicians have always been doing this. Ekiti is the most homogeneous sub-ethnic state in Nigeria. They are brothers. They have the same language, they have the same accents, they have the dialects. They still snatch boxes. I mean, you can't blame that on ethnic differences now. There are places like Safara that is 99% Muslim. They still do it. You cannot be religious. So it's in us.
Besides being in us, Emeka, final thoughts on this. How can we address this issue?
Yeah, like I said, remove the incentives in politics. Because the incentives are even getting bigger. Even the First Republic, even in pre-independence Nigeria, we had these problems. Now, with more money being available to different tiers of government.
And less choices.
And less choices. So people are becoming more desperate. So I think the incentives, the National Assembly needs to really look into the Electoral Act. But the problem is that you find out that the lawmakers, the National Assembly members will always want to look after their own interest. In the belief that, okay, there's 80% chances that I'll benefit from this. But unfortunately, every time they've had to amend the Electoral Act, you find out that a large number of them were kicked out of National Assembly. So why can't they just be patriotic for once and say, okay, let us deal with some of these issues, once and for all, whether it favors us or it doesn't favor us. Insofar as the interest of Nigerians is provided for, paramount, and we achieve those radical changes, the transformation of the electoral process, I think personal interest should just, be kept aside.
Patriotism is key. And with that, I'd like to thank my guests in the studio, Gani Kayode Balogun and Emeka Madunagu. Thank you so much for your insights on the program. this evening. And that wraps it on today's episode of Journalist Hangout. Join us again tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can also watch a repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11 and join us again on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. We are also on YouTube at youtube.com.
I wish to welcome you all to the Global Technology Africa Summit.
Technology itself is a massive driver of access to services that, frankly, most of the governments in Africa can't build infrastructure fast enough to meet.
We have to be a lot more conscious of data storage, data ownership, and things like that.
Talent is the human component of technology.
Basically, the Startup Act is a framework and an umbrella. And I think each state needs to look at what exists, how do we capitalize on what the Startup Act is, and where are our own gaps.
The platform for consumption of entertainment content is translating from linear TV or traditional TV as we know it to the screens of those mobile devices.
We're working with NITA to bring them to the U.S. to talk about how we work together on this new challenge of AI.
We have to create a new community.
We look forward to having you in GTA come November. Thank you very much.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV. Are you worried about the safety and security of your home at night? Do you wish to know when intruders come close to your home? Or do you want to protect what matters to your family from anywhere at any time? What if there was a convenient, affordable way to keep surveillance on your home without having to worry about wires, installations, or heavy light bills? Introducing the incredible Sidebulb HD Cam, the robotic 360-degree two-way torque camera with action tracking technology. Sidebulb is the ultimate solution for discreet and powerful surveillance. It's so easy to install, and the app lets you rotate and view the video from your Sidebulb in real time from any smartphone. You can drop in from anywhere and check in with our two-way talk technology. Talk and listen at the same time.
Hello, Mommy.
Hey, sweetie. I'll be home soon, okay?
Sidebulb's advanced tracking technology locks onto motion and tracks in real time. Set the siren alarm to go up when motion is detected and keep intruders away. Check in on your home